What is going on, guys? Razor Middle here, back with another Pokemon video, and today I'll be ranking every Elite Four member from worst to best. The Elite Four are among some of the strongest trainers within any Pokemon game, so it'll be quite interesting to go through and pick out the worst and best. My criteria for every ranking varies, and my explanation for each person will help guide that. It's no secret that some Elite Four members are better than others, and I'll look into why that is also. But before I get started, be sure you leave a like and comment below with your favorite and least favorite Elite Four members. Subscribe too for more awesome Pokemon content. Leaving a like and commenting is a way that you can directly help the channel grow, so I'd really appreciate if you could engage with the video. Who knows, maybe I'll even stop by and respond to some of your comments. But without further ado, let's get into the worst and best Elite Four members. Coming in last on the rankings is Wickstrom, the Steel-type Elite Four member from the Galar region. Wickstrom lacks in both strong Pokemon as well as any sort of personality. I don't get his gimmick with having the armor on. He kinda just looks like a guy wearing a Halloween costume if we're being perfectly honest here. The only place in Kalos that would indicate this armor has any sort of symbolism in either modern day or ancient society would be the Battle Chateau. Yet still, the Battle Chateau is more of a place where you go for a quick cash grab instead of deep diving into the rich history of Kalos. His Pokemon can easily be defeated, especially with Pokemon such as Pyroar, Talonflame, and Charizard all being accessible in the game. Two of his Pokemon actually have a 4x weakness to certain types, including Probopass with a 4x weakness to fighting and Caesar with a 4x weakness to fire. Additionally, neither Klefki or Aegislash pose much of a threat. Here's another Kalos Elite Four member, this time being the Dragon-type Elite Four member, Drezna. X and Y lovers, don't worry. If you stay tuned, I'll be giving praise to a certain Kalos Elite Four member later on. But for now, let's talk about Drezna. First of all, for all the reputation that Dragon-type trainers have throughout the history of Pokemon, you'd expect some sort of challenge, right? Well, Drezna's battle isn't the place for that. Additionally, no one seems interested in expanding on Drezna or her story, as evidenced by the lack of dialogue or appearances in other media. Drezna is the only Kalos Elite Four member who didn't appear in the anime, and the only backstory we get of her is that her grandparents were from Sinnoh. I'd actually like to hear more from her, so if they ever expanded on her character, she could most definitely slide her way up on the list. Poor Kahili. I don't know who to blame for her irrelevance. On one hand, I blame myself for not exploring Alola prior to the Elite Four and noticing that she has a role in the story by giving you a Z Crystal. But on the other hand, she's placed in a location that is not required to travel to, nor are you told to meet her. This is why I think she's irrelevant, simply because I had no idea who the heck this lady was when I got to the Elite Four. Every other Elite Four member helped you on your journey in some significant way, and then there's Kahili just chilling there giving you a Z Crystal. Is there anyone out there who is actually dying to get the flying Z Crystal, or did no one care like me? I would have never found this thing or Kahili in the game had I not noticed I was missing a Z Crystal on the opening title screen where it shows you all the Z Crystals that you have for every type. I don't have much to say about Marshall other than he was the easiest for me when going through the Unova Elite Four. I actually had a lot of difficulty with every other member of the Elite Four, but I felt that Marshall's lack of move diversity and ability diversity hindered the overall difficulty of his battle. Both Throh, Conkeldurr, and Mienshao are easy one-hit KOs. The only quote-unquote challenge is his Sock, who has the ability Sturdy, making a one-hit KO not possible. If it lands a Stone Edge on your flying type, then you may have some difficulty, but it's really not hard to finish off otherwise. You know you're not the best Elite Four member when you get replaced by someone else. Here we have another fighting type Elite Four member who just failed to make a serious impact for me. While his role in the game is quite significant, seeing as though he's Hal's grandpa and an island kahuna, all of his battles were easy peasy for me. I wish they added just a smidge more difficulty with him, because I felt like it would have added a lot of depth to Hal's goals of being stronger than Hala. I like Hala as a person in the game, but when ranking Elite Four members, I can't put him any higher. Sebald, like many previously mentioned, suffers from a lack of character depth and a weak team. I always remember steamrolling my way through the battles with Sebald, as his Pokemon could easily be knocked out with a grass or electric move. According to Bulbapedia, he's apparently a famous chef, which is cool I guess, but it would have been really cool had he played some type of role in the Lumiose City restaurants where you could battle trainers for lots of money. Even adding a backstory of him being the owner or chef of the restaurant in the games would have been fine, seeing as though he has no personality otherwise. At number 22 we have Glacia, and the biggest problem going for Glacia is that she's the master of the ice type in a very tropical region. This alone provides dozens of Pokemon at your disposal to counteract any challenges she may pose. Her team also has some water typings too, so when combined you can use Pokemon with grass, electric, fighting, steel, rock, and fire typings to navigate your way through the battle. And for some reason I always thought she was an old lady, not that it matters or anything, but based off her character sprite from Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald it looks that way, but it's not the case. The game's remakes are beautifully designed, and I really like the character sprite they went with for her there. Aaron suffers from another weak typing issue much like Glacia before. His team has a lot of opportunities for you to exploit its weaknesses with fire, flying and rock type Pokemon. Coupled with this is the fact that the bug type is very weak offensively, dealing half damage to fighting, fire, flying, ghost, poison, and steel Pokemon. Aaron was always the easiest battle for me in the Sinnoh Elite Four too, which makes sense looking at the bug typing's offensive and defensive capabilities. Will has a unique appearance, making him stand out more compared to his Johto Elite Four members, but this isn't enough to move him up the rankings. I for one think his mask makes him look more scary than cool. Also, one of my biggest pet peeves is when a strong trainer like a Gym Leader, Elite Four member, or Champion has two of the same Pokemon. For such an accomplished trainer, you'd think he'd have a lot of different Pokemon to spice up his team to make him stronger. His Zatus are different levels and have different moves, which makes this better, but I still think of all the Pokemon he could have had instead, like Alakazam, who is still very OP in Gen 2, or even a Girafarig, who is also a new Pokemon in Generation 2. Flint is a cool looking dude. The Ronald McDonald Afro really fits well on him, oddly enough, but I have some big issues with his Elite Four battle, which I'll dive into now. First of all, he's clearly a Fire-type trainer, yet his team in Diamond and Pearl only has two Fire-types, being Rapidash and Infernape. The other Pokemon are Steelix, Drifblim, and Lopunny. First of all, who on earth would teach Steelix Fire Fang? There's no logic in that strategically and or tactically. And secondly, the only fire move that his Drifblim knows is Will-O-Wisp, which only burns you, barely causing any damage. I know I'm not the only one bothered by Flint's team, because even Game Freak themselves altered his team in Platinum, giving him a Houndoom, Flareon, and Magmortar instead of the aforementioned Pokemon. It's a shame, because I would love to rank him higher since he does pop up once during your journey of Sinnoh, and he has a fiery personality. Pun intended. I like Sydney's Mohawk, and the Ho in Elite Four will always be special to me since my first game was Pokemon Sapphire, but his battle was always super easy for me. His team isn't annoying to me or anything like Flint or Will, it's simply that it's fairly easy to beat him since 3 of the 5 Pokemon he has are dual types. If you chose Blaziken, then you could easily sweep Sydney without any damage on you at all, since Blaziken easily outspeeds them all and has the type advantage with fighting. Unfortunately, Karen suffers from the same issue that I have with Flint, just to a lesser degree. We're pretty much at the middle of the list where I have no major issues with the Elite Four members. They're simply easy in battle and or don't have much going for them character-wise. Karen owns a Vileplume and a Gengar, which is odd considering that Koga was the Poison-type Elite Four member that you literally just battled. Neither of them have any dark moves either, which makes zero sense too. Her rematch team, however, fixes all of these problems and she has quite a good team there, so good for her. If we were just talking about Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald Phoebe, then she would be further down. But there's something very intriguing about the Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire Phoebe that pushes her way up on the list. Before I get into that though, I just want to say real quickly that her battle is pretty generic and nothing special. She has 2 Dusclops, 2 Bayonets, and a Sableye, so there's that. But in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, this happens. The Ghost Girl mystery is something that we have yet to have an explanation for in 2019. It's crazy to think that the Ghost Girl has garnered so many theories and lore, yet we don't know anything about her. Maybe Gen 8 will give us the answers we're dying for. As we approach the top 15, I just want to point out that I like all the remaining Elite Four members in their own unique ways. So let's continue with Chantal, who's a very interesting character. Each time you encounter her at the Elite Four, she spits out quotes from pieces of literature that she's written. Her room is especially spooky as you're seemingly transported up into the darkness into a mysterious library. While her battle is nothing particularly difficult, she has enough move diversity to grab your attention and not laugh her off. At number 14, Moe Lane is here, and he was a very welcomed addition to the Alolan Elite Four. While his team is very easy to counter, I will give him credit for having a team with diverse dual typings to try to stop attacks from fighting moves. What I like about Moe Lane is that he has a fairly big role in your adventure, with you meeting him in several locations for your trial and more. He's also the opposite of Glacia in the sense that I thought he was really young, but he's actually older than I expected. This implies he's a seasoned trainer and knows the craft of battling, making him a logical choice to join the Elite Four. Agatha has become infamous for her hatred of Professor Oak. According to Bulbapedia, Agatha and Professor Oak were once friendly rivals in their youth. However, their relationship has grown bitter and strained over the years because Agatha believes he was too weak to continue competing. This bit of backstory links a vital character to our adventure, Professor Oak, with Agatha, who we encounter at the Elite Four. Unfortunately for her, Generation 1 only has 1 evolution line of ghost types, which means the rest of her team had to be made up of poison types. Unlike Flint and other Elite Four members that I talked about earlier, I can't hold this against Agatha since it was a limitation of the games, not her fault. Bruno is a butt-kicking powerhouse who specializes in fighting types. While his battle isn't anything to fear, he's the only Elite Four member from Generation 1 to still be a part of the Elite Four come Generation 2. His team remains relatively unchanged, but it's cool to see him remain in such a prestigious position after a couple years past. Next we have Grimsley, who's a very interesting character. He was the Elite Four member from Unova specializing in Dark-type Pokemon and he actually caused quite a bit of a challenge for me. I'm partly to blame for this challenge, however, as when I was playing through Gen 5, I had zero idea what Dark type was weak to. In fact, I didn't know what it was weak to until Generation 6, and I had been playing religiously since Generation 3. That's pretty embarrassing. But anyways, he was always a challenge for me, and I really liked battling against him. I would always save him for last or second to last just so I could get enough experience to have high-level Pokemon. Grimsley also has a lot of additional characteristics that we learned 2 generations later in Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. There he assists you on your journey, and he stepped down from the Unova Elite Four to travel to Alola. In Alola, you can catch him Mantine surfing, battling at the battle tree, or helping you register Sharpedo to your Pokéride pager. He's such a cool dude, and I like that they brought him back for more character development. Koga holds the distinction of being the only gym leader to advance in the ranks and become an Elite Four member, which easily secures him a spot in the top 10. I love that during the 2-year time jump from Generation 1 to Generation 2, we actually see characters living their lives in new ways not previously seen. We get to know his daughter Janine, who's become the gym leader of Fuchsia City, and he gives us a good battle at the Indigo Plateau, which is always fun. Koga is also the type of Elite Four member that instead of defeating you with strength alone, he tries to inflict status conditions on his opponents. This is an interesting trait that he holds, as most Elite Four members go for the utilization of attack or defensive strategies. I would love to see Koga become a champion or battle facility trainer in a future game to see even more growth from his character. Lorelei is such an interesting person because each game that she's been in, we see more and more of her. This alone helps us to get to know her outside of the Elite Four and see her more as a character rather than just an obstacle to get through before the champion battle. In Red, Blue, and Yellow, she's simply an Elite Four member and nothing more. She helps you in the postgame by protecting Icefall Cave from Team Rocket. Then in Pokemon Let's Go, she helps you defeat Team Rocket again outside Rock Tunnel. She must have some beef with Team Rocket, so that's cool, I guess. At number 8 we have Drake, who always gave me a very tough battle. Who wouldn't love a dragon-wielding pirate who kicks some serious butt? I always had a lot of difficulty with Drake in the original games. The remakes are another story, but his team is filled with terrifying foes. He's just an all-around awesome character who not only thinks the Elite Four is stronger than the Battle Frontier, but he used to be shipmates with Mr. Briny according to Bulbapedia. Caitlin was shrouded in mystery when she was introduced in Generation 4 at the Battle Frontier. She operated the Battle Castle, yet had her butler battle for her because she couldn't control her psychic abilities without causing damage. Some time passed and we got to see Caitlin visibly age to where she is in Generation 5. As an Elite Four member, she uses her psychic abilities to put the fear of Lord Helix into her opponents, and she does a good job at that. I was actually one of those people, as I always had a hard time defeating her Reuniclus. Her team overall comes stocked with moves to counter almost anything. Don't expect to bring a Dark or Ghost type Pokemon and have an easy win because Caitlin has moves to counter them easily. Overall, I love that we got to see a character visibly age between games, as it's not very common we ever meet a character from one generation and see them in a totally new generation. Olivia is a fan favorite and rightfully so. She's an important character during your journey as well as being one tough cookie at the Elite Four. Rock types have a reputation for being very fragile, but Olivia has Pokemon like Probopass, Armaldo, and Cradily who are very strong. I could never knock out Probopass with just one Pokemon. It would always faint one of my Pokemon and I'd have to call in for reinforcements. Plus, Probopass has Sturdy as its ability, meaning there's no way for you to knock it out in one turn. If being chosen at a super young age for Island Kahuna wasn't evidence enough to show you how strong she is, surely being an Elite Four member will do the convincing for you. I have terrible memories of battling Lucien back in the day, which puts him here on the list. I had lots of trouble navigating through his team because each Pokemon can easily knock you out. His Bronzong in particular was always a nightmare for me to feint, and I remember losing to it so many times. The Steel Psychic typing is tremendous together, coupled with the ability Levitate and Bronzong's defenses, and you got yourself a tough adversary. Lucien seems like a really cool dude, and while we don't know much about him, that mystery to his character ironically fits well with the ominous Psychic typing. Acerola is just the coolest. Not only does she play a big role through your journey of Alola, but her backstory is quite interesting as well. Acerola is an orphan who's the last person alive from the Alolan royal family. The ghost typing she specializes in could be a reflection of her current situation, but she's also incredibly intelligent. I really like the animation of her character too. She just seems so bubbly and nice as she sways around. Her Drifblim did give me a little bit of trouble too because of its typing and some of the Pokemon I had on my team, so I like that I was challenged when battling her. One thing I loved about Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon was the increased difficulty, and Acerola totally attributed to the challenge of my Alolan journey. Bertha is a weird choice to be up this high in rankings of Elite Four members, especially top 3, but I've got some memories with Bertha others may not have experienced. Gen 4 was only my second generation of playing Pokemon, and to be quite honest, I was the conductor of the Hot Mess Express until at least Generation 6. Like I said earlier, type matchups and battling aren't really my thing, as evidenced by the fact that all I really do in postgame is shiny hunting. So not only did I really not understand type matchups, but Gen 4 was still the time where I put random Pokemon on my team no matter if they were good or bad. Seriously, this isn't an exaggeration either. I had a Baniri and Pachirisu on my team at the Elite Four. But anyways, Bertha always gave me a huge struggle because of her Hippowdon. Even though I had a Torterra, he couldn't knock out all 5 Pokemon, which is why I went out and caught some random under-leveled Pelipper. So after maybe like 7 rematches, I finally beat Bertha, and it was so awesome. Call me stupid, call me a bad battler, who cares, but at least I've learned a lot more about crafting a well-rounded team and improved throughout the generations, which is really what Pokemon games are all about. Originally, Lance was number 1 on the list, but after further consideration, I had to put him at number 2. Lance was an Elite Four member in the Generation 1 games, and got promoted to champion in the Generation 2 games, which is really cool to see. This Dragon Master was always a challenge for me, especially in Fire Red and Leaf Green. My team in those games was not the best, but still good enough to win. My Charizard and the 3 legendary birds on my team were all high enough level to pose some threat, but my Snorlax and Butterfree couldn't keep up. My main challenge with Lance was his Aerodactyl. I could not for the life of me beat him since he kept using Ancient Power on all my flying types. So you can imagine my excitement when I finally ended up winning. I still remember where I was too. I was at a family softball game, not paying any attention to the game and focusing all my attention solely on beating Lance, and I eventually did. Unfortunately, I never experienced difficulty with him in future battles, whether it was Yellow version on the Virtual Console or Let's Go, where I was way more seasoned of a trainer. Lastly, what I like about Lance is that I could never tell if he was a good guy or bad guy. In Generation 1, he always seemed like a mean dude, but in Generation 2, he helps you out against Team Rocket, so he's got some good in him too. Overall, Lance is an awesome dude, so he's gonna be at number 2. And finally coming in at number 1 is Malva. I told all of you Kalos fans just to hang on because the wait will finally pay off, and it did because Malva is at the top spot. So while Malva admittedly wasn't a hard challenge, I think her role as a Team Flare member negates the fact that as an opponent she wasn't very difficult. First of all, how cool is it that an Elite Four member is a part of an evil team? She can be seen throughout your journey giving out the news on the Holocaster. She also seems to have beef with you too, which is understandable since you were the one to destroy Team Flare. I actually wonder how she's not in jail or anything, since she obviously holds some prestigious rank at Team Flare since she is an Elite Four member and she's got a strong team for the most part. I mean, they try to blow up the world, so she totally had some part in constructing that plan. In your rematch against her, she says, and I quote, "Oh, I can't tell you how happy I am to meet you again. I feel like my heart might just burst into flames. I'm burning up with my hatred for you, runt." Jeez, she really knows how to roast you, huh? Pun intended, too. Well, what do you guys think? Who is your favorite and least favorite Elite Four members? Let me know. Leaving a like on this video and commenting really helps the channel grow, so go ahead and hit that like button. Also, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell. But until next time, friends, I'm Razor Middle, and I'll see you later for alligators.